Welcome to Spiritual Vacancy, the space where we stop running from the void and start filling it. I'm Brooke Ann, I'm a professional psychic medium, and in each episode, we dive deep into the practices, stories, and insights that turn spiritual hunger into spiritual wholeness. If you've been feeling like something is missing, you're in the right place. Let's fill the gap together, and your journey starts now. Hey, good morning, and welcome to the podcast. Today I have my friend Denise on. She is one of many that messaged me or called me saying they did not fully agree with my last episode. So this is actually part two of Soul Contracts and Blueprints, and I'm excited to dive in to her theory, her thoughts, and some that might not have fully agreed with me might actually agree more with Denise's point of view, and I'm really looking forward to hear her point of view. So welcome, Denise.
Thank you. Or
Thank
maybe not.
I think thank you. I'm going to say thank you. And Denise is an amazing tarot reader. She's on her mediumship journey. She's just so special. And she's been on the podcast before with New Perspective Tarot. So if you missed her episode, go back a few, find it, and then you can hear her story. But I loved it because, you and other people messaged me after my last episode and was like, I don't agree with you. So,
So
that.
wait, I didn't say I didn't agree though. I just said I was speaking to while I was listening to the podcast because I had so much I wanted to add and interject. So I was thinking to myself, she's got to do like a part two of this. And then you said, well, if anybody would like to participate, or maybe I'll do a part two. And that's when I texted you like immediately after I watched it.
Yes, no, I love it because there was other people, so she might not have said disagree, but there was definitely a lot of messages that I received where, probably about five different people messaged me and was like, I don't know if I believe, my theory on it or my belief on it, which is totally fine because I am open to any kind of conversation. So, what do you kind of feel about, like, you believe that we have a set blueprint that we're born with, or do you think there's sort of a basic and we could change it?
So I think that we have an agreement that we make, like you had said. We make an agreement. We're with our guides, our other soul pods, our immediate circle soul pod, maybe outer circle soul pod. And from life to life, we kind of get together and we're just like, okay, took care of this in this lifetime or whatever. Like, what's going to be like the main event? Right? Or the overarching theme of this lifetime as a soul. What's something that I have not experienced before that I would like to experience in this lifetime, right?
Mhm.
Maybe we get suggestions, more little feedback comes into it. And I think it's sort of like college. You go for your master's, but then you have, those subsets that come underneath. So there are multiple things that play into it. Just because a soul contract gets written and agreed to doesn't mean we're going to complete it, in my opinion. Like my belief is you could come down with this obvious thing that you want to do, and you could get here and you could be like, oh, fuck this shit. It's too hard. I'm going, you know? I was
Yeah.
I listened right back before we got on today because I wanted to listen back to some of the stories that you were telling to remember the things that I was saying while I was listening to the podcast. And one of the funny things was about the other thing I believe in too is that we have multiple exits, right?
Right.
I think we have different timeline exits that we could go. So when you were talking about I want to die by death, by tire, by windshield, and I was like, but think about it, right?
Right. Right.
Did you write those specifics for your life path? No, hell no.
Right.
You just said, listen, maybe I'm going to want an entry point, exit point here, exit point here, exit point here, right? And
Right.
so, highly possible the person that was on their way to the birthday party and maybe knows they want to exit, right? And didn't heed the message. You know what? You really don't want to go to that birthday party. Answer no, don't go, whatever. But you override your intuition. You're just like, no, I think I'm going to go because deep down your soul says, I want out. I don't
Right.
want to do this anymore? So
Right.
they followed the path. And then the supporting information for me, like the thing that really woke me up to there's two things actually to this belief system was um 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 9/11. there were decisions made by lots of people, and there were lots of people who perished, and there
Mhm.
were lots of people who accidentally didn't make it.
Mhm.
How is that possible? Do
Right.
you know what I mean? So I
Right.
feel like there, and some might have been a part of that exterior soul pod to say, fine, we'll be of this portion of that story,
Right.
and we're going to have this portion of that story, all those children that were born, of the poor fathers that perished. You know what I mean? Like that's what I
Right.
mean by layers. So when you look at an example of something like that, there had to be a lot of fine-tune agreement happening, in the other world prior to coming down, but the trajectory of the lives that changed as a result of that,
Mhm.
and I liken life to like a play too. There has to be the antagonist,
Mhm.
there has to be kind of like, the extras in the back, but everybody affects the end result of that play in some way, shape, or form. And if
Right.
there weren't antagonists and if there weren't all these other components, and I was actually pleased this past week. I subscribed to Next Level Soul, the podcast and the app, and somebody was speaking something that I've said for years about how the soul who loved you the most up there could come down and ends up being your arch nemesis here
Mhm.
because they agreed to assist you in achieving whatever the soul lesson is. And that's been one of the harder things, because I always tell people, send that person love because they agreed to be the bastard in your story, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Like in
Definitely.
all of those things. So do I think that everything is predestined? Not even close. I
Mhm.
feel like we come down with a want and a desire. Just because somebody goes to college and or medical school to be a brain surgeon doesn't mean that they don't now offshoot and say, I feel as though I could be much more of a benefit. I needed all of this education, but I could be much more of a benefit in with all of that in this area.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like, I think
Mhm.
that there's lots of different ways that we can go about things. And I also think that we could come down and exit stage left of our own hand when we decide that I might have taken too aggressive of a course this lifetime, and I don't want to do all of this now. So I'll do a do-over another time. I'm
Right.
getting out. And I
Right.
also think those exits can have dual purposes. They might have agreed to do that to shift the lives and soul paths of people over here. You know what
Right.
I mean? I feel like there
Yeah.
could be dual contracts as well.
Yeah, I could definitely see what you're saying. And then when it comes to like something like 9/11, that's such a huge, you know, it's almost like, was that actually destined, or was it the day, or, because the people that did it, there's so many moving parts, there's so many other things they could have hit, why that building, or why at that time, or what, you know what I mean? Because it is, when you look at it at the bigger picture, it's like I just feel like the human experience changes so much. And it's kind of like sometimes we use our intuition, like how some people that you talk to, or they interviewed after 9/11, and
Yes.
they were like, yeah, I had a doctor's appointment, or oh, I got sick, or my car broke down, or whatever. It's almost like that intuition. Could they have gone? Sure. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Could they still have went to work, or could they have changed their appointment, but they didn't? And then
Right.
like other people, I kind of think about, like there's that story where I think it's like an old-timey murder thing where these girls were working at an ice cream shop. And I think one of the employees was supposed to go, and she switched her shift, and then they ended up being robbed and killed. But it's like, but is that actually their soul's destiny, or was it the people that did the murdering that changed it, whether they were on drugs, or their intentions, or choosing at that time to go on a different path? Are we going to place the blame on the murderers or the innocent victims? Because, like, were they actually supposed to pass that day? I don't know. you
I
know
would say neither, though. I feel like you wouldn't, first of all, there wouldn't be, in my world, there wouldn't be blame.
right.
There would be synchronistic events that took place
Right.
that caused something to happen
Right.
that was a part of a story.
But if it wasn't for the bad guy, all those people would still be alive, per se,
Correct.
depending on how they might
However, so
pass in
think
a
of,
different way, right?
right. think of some of these stories though, where a person they survive a plane crash and a week
Mhm.
later die in a car accident
Right.
because
Right.
it was their time to go. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like so
Hmm.
so are there misses and slips and could different things happen as a result? I still feel as though everything to an extent is
Hmm.
orchestrated for a particular outcome. If
Right.
that particular outcome doesn't happen on said day, on said event, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
If it was your time to go, you're gonna go. I don't
Right.
care how much,
Right.
like
Right. It's
whatever you do,
right.
I feel like it's gonna happen one way, shape, or form. And I feel like like I was saying, I don't think none of us know, but
Right.
I
We don't.
don't think we could even understand the gravity of subcontracts that might exist as a result.
Right.
We're getting the idea to pick one way or another way, or to be out of our minds, or to be the delirious one that does end up killing somebody or whatever.
Right.
But is that delirious one following their soul contract to be the villain in this person's life, to become incarcerated, to now turn their life around completely to now save other people's lives?
Right. But that's a
So
personal choice though, right? Because they're choosing that fate because then you have other ones that as soon as they get out of jail or prison, they go do the same thing and end right back up in there.
sure, sure.
Right. So it's like, but is that part of their
They could be
own?
ditching their soul contract. They could be like,
Right.
nah, I'd rather stay inebriated. I'd rather stay a bad person. I don't want to face
Right.
this, which is where the nothing is really technically destined. At
Right.
the end of the day, you could completely not graduate, and guess what? It doesn't matter.
Right.
None of it
Right.
matters.
Right. It doesn't. What do you think about how when we're born and you're born with a perfect soul, but your body, your brain is damaged, or you're born to drugs, or you're, born with disease already, and then you get to a certain age and then you do bad things. Do you think that's predestined to be that way, to be born into a body that's not perfect already?
I do. I think it's chosen. I don't know if I like the word predestined. It's still free will. As a soul, we're choosing. My life lesson is I want to understand what it's like to be different from everybody else, but still be able to survive that and thrive and do all these other things or whatever. Because,
Right.
pick a million different ailments that a child could be born with and what they overcome and then how they inspire other people. Like there's a million stories there, right?
Right. But doesn't that actually change the body, not the soul, right? So like the brain. So say you have you're a perfect child, but then, you're given drugs or somebody shakes you or there's brain damage somewhere, right? Which
Mhm.
actually changes the outside, not the soul part, not part
Right.
of that destiny, right? But then it changes the outcome of their life. Do you think that that soul picked that part of their life for that to happen?
Sure. And it could be partly a contract to, let's use shaken baby syndrome and the brain issue.
Uh-huh.
That would have been some kind of a commitment to the soul who did the shaking. Because, like I wrote to you as the comments, the lady
Right.
with the pool and the fence,
Right.
what if her overall master's degree for this lifetime was
Mhm.
self-forgiveness? What more detrimental thing could happen? You know what
Yeah,
I
that's like the
mean?
worst. That's like
To
the
cause,
hardest
right.
degree of self-forgiveness. That's
Exactly.
rough.
But
Yeah.
think about it. If that's what that soul chose, because that was the last part when I finished before we got on.
Right.
If that soul chose that that's what I want, there could be a million and one ways she could have to learn the lesson or experience self-forgiveness. It
Right.
could have been that child. It could be something that happened to a sibling that she caused. It could be a parent. Could have been a
Right.
million and one things, right? But
Right.
evidently, the soul of that child would have had to have agreed to that too.
Right.
It's a grown soul. It's a little baby here in this particular lifetime, but it's a soul nonetheless that may have gone through. It might have been an old soul that says, okay,
Right.
you know what, I'm going to come for a couple of years and then I'll be out, and then you could go on your way and learn your lesson.
Yeah. Don't you think though she chose free will? So it's almost like people were telling her to get the fence. She chose not to. Now, if she got the fence and the child died, right, from drowning with the fence, that might have been more of his soul's purpose for the way I view it, right? But because she was negligent, on continually to not do something that people were warning her about, she knew about, she got a fence company out there, she knew it was liable. But now for me, the difference would have been if she put the fence up and then the child drowned. To me, I would have been like, that might have been, like how he's supposed to, but because the mother chose that free will to ignore, because she could have done it. She had the estimate, she had the pool.
But
She
what
said,
kept her from doing that's
because
part of
she
my
said
thing.
she
Like
didn't
since
like the way it
initially,
looked.
exactly. But there were things that kept pushing her away from making that choice. So in my
Herself, though, her
yes,
own
yes,
views.
but from
Right.
what though? Is it intuition? Is it like, were there other things blocking her from making that decision? And would there be a difference between, as a soul, experiencing the loss of a child due to a tragedy versus the loss of a child at your own hand? Self-forgiveness versus a loss of a child. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like different soul lessons.
Right. It
Because
could be,
murderers,
but yeah, I just think we have so much free will in this life where we can change what we're supposed to be doing, or we can make ourselves pass sooner than our time is up, by
sure,
decisions, by alcoholism, by drugs, by certain obstacles that we choose in our life where you don't have to choose that path, but you do,
right.
and that's a personal choice. And so for me, with that instance, I feel like she took away any other choice but her own. She didn't think about anybody else. She only thought about what she
Right.
wanted, not what was good for her kids. And then at that point is when her child passes away. But if she got that fence within that year, and she didn't care about how it looked, like she didn't care, like it's for the safety. People were warning her, your child's going to drown, like you need this. And then to still refuse to do it, I almost feel like she brought that in. Like, not even that it was supposed to be. It's just like it's almost like she manifested it with everybody talking about it. And it wasn't maybe predestined in a certain way. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of. I just don't feel like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't feel like there are accidents. And I don't separate the soul from the human. The human has free will. We enter the body so we can have these experiences. If we're connected to all that is,
Right.
we're like, there's no way to experience it, right?
Right.
So the
Right.
feeling is that we come down here to be able to physically engage and have that free will and
Right.
be able to make these decisions. But I guess somewhere in the back for me, I feel like some of the free will, whatever decisions we make, play a part in the blueprint that we put out. Maybe not to specifics like dialed,
Right.
but in theme. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So if it wasn't in that case and it wasn't that child, and we also don't know what trajectory of other people's lives changed as a result of that child leaving in
Right.
that particular fashion. Because
Right.
I feel like there are also ripple changes that happen as a result of tumultuous things that happen in our lives.
Right.
And we don't even know what the after effect is of
Right.
that. Like,
No.
if that child died because it's now saving another child that's coming in to like cure cancer, or you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because that a parent or whoever watched that said, oh, we're never getting a pool or whatever the case,
Right. Right.
like we don't know what all of the after effects are. And that's the part I think where we're blind being here to
Mm-hmm.
understand how the dots are connected.
Right.
I mean, I think we don't really get to. That's why I said this is just, there's a book that I read years ago, and I kind of like brushed it away for 5 years because I thought it was a religious book. It was called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just recommended it to my cousin, and I'm listening to it on audio again now. I've read it probably like 2 or 3 times, but it really goes into the detail of whatever we choose here, we choose so that we can have that experience, and it means nothing anywhere.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
we're
Just for
just
our
coming
soul.
here to say if that's what you want to experience, like there's no right and there's no wrong. We
Right.
are choosing to experience something, but then it opens up to all of the ideas and the possibilities of what then happened as a result.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
Who determines good, bad, or indifferent?
Right. I agree. I mean,
Right.
I feel like when you start studying or like looking at like what Pip does with cardiology or like astrology and things like that, it talks about more of like who we are as
Yes.
a person, like challenges that we might have to go through, whether it's, our own mind, our
Mhm.
own, if you want to be the center of attention or if you're more quiet or, all these differences of your attitudes and what's going on and what you kind of have to overcome
Right.
in this life. And I feel like that's the same with like relationships or
Mhm.
careers. Why some people are nurses, some people work with food, some people are manufacturers, some people are on boats,
Right.
and that's their career, right? And that's part of their soul's journey. But then some part of me feels like the rest is not totally destined when it comes to certain passings or certain things that we have to experience because that's part of the human experience that we don't have control of. Like we can see some of our blueprint or soul contract before we get like your husband, your kids, like those relationships. Like I definitely feel like we come into that because
Mhm.
there's that connection. But
Right.
then there's the other stuff where it's like I feel like there's so many outside things that could kind of come in and change people where it's like I can't imagine they would choose that because everything else just kind of talks about who we are,
Right.
certain things about us, but it doesn't go into, you're looking at my chart and they're like, "Oh my God, you're gonna have cancer. Oh my God, you're gonna have this or you're gonna get diagnosed with MS at this stage." And there's nothing like that in the charts.
Right.
So, but why not? Right? Because if that's
So I
part
look
of
at
it,
those things as the lessons, though. The how doesn't matter,
right,
right? So to
right,
me, the how is the ingredient that could go any which way,
right.
right? So if there is a thing that we want to, I have to use like a couple of different experiences. Like if you talk to people that have had cancer, some of them say it's the best thing that ever happened to them
Mm-hmm.
because they started to live life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the avenue that was chosen, predestined. If it wasn't a cancer, that was something that was caused by them. Because there's multiple types of cancers too. You
Oh
know what
yeah.
I mean?
Tons, tons.
So, and everybody would say, why would somebody choose that? Why would somebody choose to come and be in a body of a Down syndrome child? Why would somebody choose to come here and be severely autistic,
Mm-hmm.
non-speaking autistic? Why
Mm-hmm.
would, because these are souls that are like at the mega, mega master
Yeah,
levels.
that's what I
And they're
think
like,
too.
you know what?
I
I
think
did a
there's,
little bullshit. I need a tough one this time, you know?
yeah.
And so I feel like all the different hows and the free will, it's like, okay, your destiny is to know what it's like to journey 3,000 miles and arrive from the East Coast to the West Coast. How you get there is up to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
all those little bypasses and stuff. Now, there's so many people that could go if they had a destiny or whatever from A to B, straight line. Then there are people that go A, up,
Right.
then
Right.
B, then C. They go a
Right.
million and one ways. They don't take that straight path. I just watched a video the other day and I had to Google it to make sure it was um real, and I don't even know how this plays. I kind of know how I see it playing into the conversation. There is a young boy who is like this mega fashion designer. He
Oh,
was,
Max Alexander.
yes,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
7 years
I love
old,
him.
and
Yeah, he's
his
amazing.
okay. But now, let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Was it destined for him to be a fashion designer, or was his previous life a fashion designer? He loved it so much he couldn't let it go. This lifetime has another destiny, but his
Mm-hmm.
parents gave him space and he had free
Mm-hmm.
will, and he's maybe
Yep.
he's not going to make the mark this time because he
Yep.
just wants to keep going from last life.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But
That's why I said in the last episode, some people just are born and they know what they want to do,
yes,
which I wasn't like that. I have
right.
no
Me
idea. My
neither.
sister was always a teacher, that's what she always wanted to be. She's a teacher now. And I'm like, I had no idea. I had no drive, no motivation. I had no anything, right? So it's like, yes, I do believe from past lives, but that's still about us, right? That's still a passion with our personality and with who we are. It's not the outside of, you get hit and killed by someone else drinking. So that to me, that's not us anymore, but it's that parts of that personality and that's that part of our joy and our love, right? And then so like what do you think about this? Because go back to the health. So like one of my really good friends was a dentist and he got a really rare lung disease
Mhm.
that took his life very young at like 52. And he was not a uh,
Smoker or anything.
no smoker, but he
Right.
also wasn't a candidate for a lung transplant because the disease actually pretty much eats your lungs or like
Wow.
deteriorates your lungs.
Mhm.
And they don't necessarily know what it's from, but what they thought was from all the chemicals that were used for dental work, especially
Yep.
because he started in the 80s.
Hmm.
And so how do you feel about that? Because he had so much life to live. His husband was, about 15, 20 years his senior. And they always just thought, his
The other
husband
one
was
would
going to
go
go for
first. Right.
always because he's older, right? But you think that he wrote that in to like die of chemicals that were man-made and then have an awful, like, can't breathe for 2 years, can't do anything for 2 years, is homebound, and then passes away. I have a hard time imagining someone looking at their blueprint and because I mean it was awful. Like
Right.
to see that, to witness that.
Right.
And when it isn't, a positive thing where cancer changed my life or made me live, it actually took his life for
Right.
years before he died. And it wasn't fun. He had to retire early. He was so young. And it's like, I just can't imagine somebody saying, I think someone's going to make some kind of chemical that I'm going to work with that's going to, slowly deteriorate my lungs, make my life miserable for the last 2 years of my life or more. And that's hard for me, but I do believe when you look at it, it's like I do want to help people. I want to be a dentist. I want to do this. This is my personality. I want to travel. I'm gonna be gay because I've been a woman so many other times.
Right.
This time I'm gonna come in as a man, shift things up a little bit. But for me, I have a hard time to kind of that part of it, to imagine that we do that to ourselves. And for me, that's part of the human experience dealing with man-made products or our
Right.
cell phones. Because you look back in time, everybody was passing from Agent Orange, asbestos,
Yep.
all this other stuff, right? All these different cancers back then from all this man-made shit that there was no laws about, right? And now we've just shifted over into another thing with our bioengineered food, which is
Yep.
all man-made, going cheaper, and that's to me, that's not really part of the soul, that's part of the human experience. And then you've got
Kind
our,
of. Okay, so here's where now, so this to me, I keep on saying, like, I don't dial into the nitty gritty of the how.
right,
So in the case of your friend, to me, when I see that as an overarching example of soul contracts and life and destiny and all these other things, the two of them obviously made some kind of a pact that the younger one was going to go before the older one because the older one either had something that had to play out to be without a companion for the second part of their life or whatever the case or however that went off. We don't know interpersonally what your friend, besides the physical horror of what he
mm,
experienced
yeah,
that way, what other learnings his soul came to, being made to retire early, not being identified with being a dentist, having to just be a person in a body. Like there are overarching other lessons in those 2 years without being able to like, I always think of the last lecture by Randy Rausch. And, he had the pancreatic cancer and he did
mhm,
all these other things. And a lot of more Tuesdays with Maury was another one of those books. As a person is dying, the amount of lessons and things that happen in that period of time that would have never existed had this thing not happened. So I don't
right,
think they pick the chemicals and the this and the that. Like I think those blanks just kind of get filled in
right,
to to adhere to what you say you wanted. And then
right.
it just kind of plays out in that kind of way.
That makes sense.
Earlier, I wanted to say, because when we were talking about 9/11 and stuff like that, I guess because the way I look at it is that if every single thing that exists in the whole cosmos is one thing, then we are everything that we're doing for each other. If you
Right.
never die, energy never dies. It
Right.
wasn't those horrible people from that other country that did that. Like there was this big orchestration of the thing that was going to happen to
Oh
get to the
yeah.
moral of the story to move us forward or to say whatever. I think in a lot of cases, it's like, okay, like if we're the one, right?
Right.
And we say, I wonder if left to my own devices, I would choose salvation. And then I break apart into a million pieces like Mike TV on Willy Wonka, right? And that's all these personalities, countries, stars, aliens, I don't care, whatever.
Right.
You got free reign. What are you going to pick? You
Right.
know, it's like
Yeah.
unleashing yourself. And it's like those little videos that they do with the kids where they say, now don't touch the chocolate. I'll be back in a minute. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, don't touch
Well,
it.
that's us, you know, and what do
Yeah.
we want to do and what do we want to experience? So the free will part was like us giving ourselves permission to experience the good, the bad, and
Right.
the
I
ugly.
agree 100% with
And
that.
we get to do all of that. So I don't think that. So now I think it gets just like party themes. You know, you have Cinco de Mayo night, and then you have
Yes.
Klondike bar night, and you have whatever. I feel like
Right.
life is like that. We pick, okay, I want this to be my Cinco de Mayo life. So these
Yes.
things are
Yeah.
going to happen here.
Yes.
And maybe we don't know all the nitty gritty, but I
We
think when we
do.
look
Correct.
back and
Yes.
we get that whole review, we're like, oh, that's why. Like all these, I think we
Yeah.
get like all these, oh my God, like
Right.
that's why that happened, you know?
Yeah.
And then we also see the things that we did when we had free will to choose
Hmm.
to either help somebody, walk away from them,
Hmm.
release them. We feel what they felt
Yeah.
after we're gone, but we also, I think, get to see how it could have played out in the three different ways.
Right.
I think that's where the free will comes in, that we get the free will to determine how we're going to experience the things that we say we want to. There might be way better ways we can experience certain things, you know?
Right.
And we get to, as humans, pick the gravity with which we experience it. If I had to wrap it up in a nutshell, I think that's how the free will thing comes in for me. But when we're talking about the responsibility of the other and the whatever, yes, this is us as a million pieces, all
Hmm.
having free will at the same time.
Definitely.
So we're
Definitely.
like, so we're working with ourselves or not so much?
Yeah. And I think where this kind of stems from is where the problem I have with the work that we do is when people lose children. And some mediums are just like, well, it was their time. That was meant to be. I mean, I just
Right.
can't, like, how
No.
to say that to a parent? Like,
Right.
you have your mom, I'm a mom. For if someone were to murder my son
Oh
and
my God.
somebody tell me that was meant to be, I would probably want to slap them.
Yes, I
Because
would
it's
want
like,
to too.
why? Because my son did nothing wrong.
Right.
And in that case, somebody is, doing something really bad. And it's like, but they're living, but my son isn't. So and then it gets into that conversation of, what did your son, is this part, like he planned this? And it's like, I just
Right.
can't imagine somebody wanting to be murdered in that way or
But
cut
think about this.
liver.
I don't know if you know this story. So it goes back to again, though, faith and faith in a higher power and a bigger picture.
Right.
For me, when things like that happen. Now, would I be like that if that happened to my kid? I don't know. I could shoot my faith right out the fucking window and be like,
You,
fuck that shit.
I'm telling
Sorry, I
you,
cursed so much,
no, no, this is an adult podcast, but I'm telling you,
but I
Denise,
don't know.
it will
I've
change
never
you.
experienced it.
It will change you, honey.
But there was, I don't know if you remember the story way back, that shooter that came in and killed every child in an Amish schoolhouse.
Oh my God, was that a long time ago? When was
Yes, it
that?
was. It was quite, I
Okay.
think it was back in the 90s, right?
Okay. I'm like, oh
And that
man.
community came together and literally forgave the shooter, like because of their belief in a higher power that A, they know their children went where they were supposed to go, right? They're
Hmm.
back as a part of the whole.
Hmm.
That story changed my viewpoint a lot about we all have the free will on how we respond to
Hmm.
circumstances that take place in our lives and
Definitely.
what we make of them too. So when I had read that, I remember seeing them interviewed on the news and stuff like that. And so now there's a faith component. How linked into our faith are we? That I mean, yes, on a rational level as an individual person to sit here and say, Oh yeah, sure. That was predestined. My kid picked to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that kid picked to whatever, Russian roulette with a gun that was left in the house and not locked in a safety box or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
All of these things. And this is where people lose their faith and don't believe in a God anymore because if you could let
Mhm.
this happen to my kid, then who are you? And you have nothing
Right.
to do with me. And I totally get that part.
Right.
But that's where faith really comes into play, and only individuals can decide how,
Right.
and that's could be part of their soul path too. Think
Mhm.
about the story about the guy that was the Ku Klux Klan that then met with an African American man, and he, like I don't know the intricacies of the story, but their friendship or the conversation that they started. The guy was a skinhead. It wasn't KKK. It was a skinhead.
Okay.
Literally complete 360 with
Yeah.
this guy. And he had done detrimental things to a lot of people of color. Now,
Hmm.
this guy, in order to change this individual, had to take his humanness and put all of that behind him because he
Right.
could carry hatred for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
it was a part of his soul contract to makes such a grand effect on somebody who you would think he would want to hate for the rest of his life.
Right.
You see what I'm saying about all these different layers, intricacies,
There
different
are.
things. There
Yes.
are so many. It's not even just about being killed. It's about
Right.
causing such great harm. And if if my belief is correct, that means at some point I had to be a murderer. At some point I had to be the villain, maybe a
Hmm.
rapist, maybe I set a fire
Hmm.
to a building. Like, we don't come back and it's not like, oh, I just want to be a movie star in this lifetime and
Right.
lifestyle the rich and
Right.
famous over here, and then maybe I'll be a nurse over here. Like in order to be like in my opinion, in order to be the whole, you have to be everything.
Hmm.
Because or else how do you ever understand from the both sides?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm a firm believer in people are not born that way. They're made in a lot of
Hmm.
cases. Do I think some evil spawns are born? Yes. But I would say 98% are made, and that's part of a soul contract. So they are born into this life where these horrific things happen to them that snap something in their brain that sets off this chain reaction. But everybody else agreed to get on that train, but for different reasons. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, so
Right.
it's really way more. I see where you're coming from, taking it from a much more on the street human perspective. And
Hmm.
when I start thinking about it, I think about like the bird's eye view of seeing how all the little pins start to go down or connect or roll to meet each other or whatever
Right.
from that place. So do I think we sit up there and say, I don't think we fill in all of those details. I just think
Right.
we say, this go around, this is the overarching theme of what I would like to experience because I've not experienced it before. And I feel that that would make me a fuller soul, or I'd be able to have more compassion in certain areas or whatever. And
Mhm.
then all the handshakes with all the rest. Okay, this is how this is going to affect you and you and you and you. And then all the
Right.
details get filled in, and could we could have multiple opportunities
Yeah.
to bypass it or fulfill it. And just because it happens also doesn't mean we get it the first
Right.
go around.
Right.
We might have to do it again at this, exit off the
Hmm.
highway or at this one or at this one. So
Yes.
yeah, I just think that there are so many layers, so many dimensions to it. It's very hard to put it in a thimble.
Right. And I agree with what you're saying too about like the layers of it and there's so much more to it, but I think the general public is more about not seeing it as the layers as why would someone pick that? Why would
Right.
somebody want to do that? Why would somebody choose that path, right? And that's where it gets kind of tricky where it's like I can't say they actually chose that exact
Right.
direction, right?
We
Like
don't
did
know.
they? I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe they just chose this life and to overcome it. But I also think that's a lot of the case with depression,
Yeah.
right? When people have a lot of depression in their life and their mind and can't get out of their own way, maybe their goal is to overcome, passing by their own hand, but then that still happens and they don't overcome it.
Right.
And then they end up that like that was their soul's purpose and their plan and their blueprint in this life, and they're doing their best to overcome it and they just can't. And so then they go out. Are they free? 1,000%.
Yep,
But who's to say they don't have to come into the next life and start all over and with the same
exactly.
challenge to be like, well, you didn't complete, get over that depression or
Right.
your own mental mind.
You're repeating the fifth grade, sorry.
Right. But then, so this has always fascinated me. And I don't know if I've told you about this story or not, but I do tell a lot of people because I think it changed the way I feel about certain things with our soul, right?
Mhm.
And it's where this little boy kills his whole family, and he's like 7 or 8, and that's almost unheard of,
Right.
right? And everybody's like, he's evil, and he has dark eyes, and like all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
So then a doctor looks at his brain after this fact, and he goes, I've never seen a brain look like that, like ever.
Right.
So to me, it's like that's not the soul anymore. You have a perfect soul in a broken shell,
Right.
and that shell is changing the path of that soul.
Hmm.
Because what 7, 8-year-old is going to kill their whole family? Like that's crazy. Well, who has that behind them? But if the parts that they're born into are not working correctly, or it is like a brain that doctor has never seen, how does that become part of the soul contract? How does that become, because that's not the soul at that point.
So I
The
I don't see
brain.
that any different than picking Stephen Hawking's, okay?
Yeah,
Anybody that picks any, there are people out there that are born because of the drugs they were given to pregnant women back in the day that have hardly no arms, no legs, right? But
right,
maybe that person or that soul wanted to experience independence regardless of circumstances. You know what I mean? They picked that body. To me, that soul would have picked the defective brain body,
right,
not knowing what direction it was going to go, but they were going to cause catastrophe. We don't know to
right,
what level, right?
right,
Those other souls had to participate in that. Those other
right,
souls said, fine, we'll go down. Now you're gonna become, what if the whole thing was for that soul to have to be a villain, but to also become some sort of part of science to understand something going forward, to be able to
right,
fix something for multiple future generations.
right. But for me, I don't feel like that soul is evil at
Right.
that
I don't
point.
either.
Right, but you know how many times people think that that soul,
Because
that
everybody's looking
boy,
for blame. Everybody's looking, you got to blame something or someone for
right.
something.
Well, because he lacks the empathy, he lacks
Mhm.
the just
Yeah,
the
all the wires
normalcy
are
of
not
not
connected. Yeah,
killing anybody, especially your own family at such a young age. And
right.
so I think like the stereotype is when people do bad things, it's their soul. But then if you rewind it, is it though? Or is it
And
that
here's
you
the thing.
have,
In conversations with God, the conversation would go down the road of, well, if the souls that got killed wanted that experience and the soul that did the killing wanted that experience, who says it's bad? Who gets to judge it as bad?
right? But you're taking a perfect soul and putting it into a broken body.
To
That,
experience something. It doesn't break, the soul can't break.
but what, yeah, but maybe they can.
Well, that we don't know. That
Maybe
I
they
don't believe
can.
though.
But you have to think about, who knows what happened to his brain after he was born, if it was from, it never said why. He just said he's never seen a brain like that. So I don't
I
know
don't
if
know if
that
he
was
was born
born
with
that
it or
way.
yeah.
I don't know if it was damaged after the fact of him being
Hmm.
born or what it is. But for me, when I heard that story, it clicked where I'm like, oh my God, we're coming in as a perfect soul with certain things that we have to overcome and things like that. But then you're putting it into something that's already damaged, which to me that separates it from the soul because it's like, for example, a cake box, right? When from the outside it looks perfect, but when you open it up, it's all smashed up. But you wouldn't know that. But it's like, but that's the same with like the soul. They look normal, but they're really not. But I think we try to put a lot of blame on the soul, but I'm like, but the human experience is so much more. And is it something that this little boy planned? Or was it just something after the fact that he's born into and these changes happen that he doesn't have control over? And
Right.
then that changed the brain, but his soul is still the same. Does that make sense? It was
It
just
does.
fascinating to me because it
I
made
know.
me think outside of the box where it's like we always think there's dark spirits and there's evil people and
Yep.
there's this,
I
but I'm like,
don't.
but that's part of the human experience. That's not their soul.
And not only that, here's the deal. Nothing changes without conflict.
Right,
Nothing.
right,
Not one thing changes without conflict.
right.
So there's different levels of conflict. So I guess the way I see that, again, I'm stuck on the whole thing that the soul would have picked. How the brain became damaged is irrelevant to me.
Right, because we already
But he
know.
picked a body that was going to cause him to do something or not have, I want to know what it's like to not have empathy, to just do
Right.
whatever and not feel a thing.
I don't know if I'd ever want to be like that, but there are many people that way.
I know, but
That's
I'm saying, but
scary.
that's what I'm saying.
Scary.
So we
It's
don't
scary.
know what the initial
Right,
desire was to come
right.
here to do. And I feel like I don't feel like the soul could be broken because I feel like the soul is our God spark, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So that's the
definitely.
part that
Yeah.
enlivens us and says, I
Right.
want to come here and I want to do this or whatever. And listen, there's days that I feel like we're on the Truman Show. So it's just like whatever. We're in an earthly simulation. This was all a test. Pretty
Yeah.
soon that
It
that the
is.
fuzz is going to go back on the TV, and then they'll say,
Mhm.
"Now we return you to your regularly scheduled program."
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's just so I don't know. Maybe God got bored and just said, "You know what? I'm tired of everything being perfect. I just want to throw the shit on the wall, see what sticks."
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Right? Because what is really like, I mean, we could go down a lot of rabbit holes with this.
Oh,
We could totally
definitely.
go in a million different directions. But it
Definitely.
has, and I know too, the thought process that I'm proposing is considered spiritual bypassing in a lot of places. And
Hmm.
it's not like, I don't know how to explain that it just resonates with me so much. That book, Conversations with God,
Hmm.
is I introduced it to a friend of mine who said every time she read it, she goes, I threw the fucking book across the room because how could this be possible? How did Hitler go to heaven? How is that
Hmm.
possible? But
Yeah.
you have to read the whole book, and maybe it's
Yeah.
not going to resonate for some people because guess what? It's
Right.
not built into their plan. There are
Right.
people
And
that
it's
the
fine.
Torah, they resonate with the Torah. There are people that, the
Yeah.
Egyptian scrolls, everybody has a different path. And the things that resonate with you for a reason so that you now gravitate to certain other people or your mind expands in certain ways. So like again, this is everybody can bake a chocolate cake, but there are so many different ways to make it, so many
Right.
different ingredients, so many
Yeah.
shapes, so many layers, so many, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like so there's
Yes.
just we could go on and on and
Yeah.
on forever. And I think we place an awful lot of gravity on the words we use to describe things
Yeah.
by
Oh, definitely.
saying destined, right?
Hmm.
What if it was just an experience? Like
Right.
experience doesn't
Right.
sound so heavy as destined,
I know. Definitely.
And
Yeah.
so if we kind of like even play around with some of the words, and then we got to think about like what was impressed upon us when if we were forced to go to church when we were younger, or what our families believed, or
Hmm.
like and how ingrained. Look at all these people that come out of these religious cults.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
was their literal upbringing.
Hmm.
And then and who would pick that? But then
Right.
they said, I want to know what it's like to be a prisoner of something, to know absolutely nothing, to come out into the real world and not have a clue.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's so many, if we think of all the different life options there are
Oh,
just
and there's a lot, but we all
so
live
many.
almost parallel lives at some point or another where we can almost relate to certain people where it's like, oh my God, everybody's truly living the same life when it
Yes.
comes to relationships or friendships or certain part aspects of our work, right? Doesn't have to be the same work, but it's almost all the same. We're like, holy shit, this is
Those
crazy.
basics are the same. So I feel like the idea of heaven on earth is for all of these God parts to come back together while we're here. Like
Yeah.
finding that little common denominator of what you're saying about
Mhm.
how everything is so relational. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, people just want to be loved and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
accepted and cared about. Like at the end of the day, and if we remembered that about every single person that we come into contact with,
Mm.
that also changes the trajectory of destiny. What if we had
Yeah.
two destinies?
Right. Right.
We got to pick two and we didn't know which way our free will was going to take us. I didn't even think about
Right.
that till just now.
I know. I mean, it could be. I mean, who are we to say that it's not, right?
Right.
Like there's so many different ways to look at it, and I don't think there's any like right or wrong. I think whatever anybody feels in their heart, like if
Yep.
they truly believe, whatever they believe, then it's fine. Like we don't need to try to,
No, some
change
people
it.
believe this is it. This is your only life, the
Yeah,
only
I
life you
know,
ever live. And when you
right?
go, what did I just hear the other day that was so pertinent to me?
Yeah, and
I'm
you go and you
thinking,
never come back. You just disappear forever. Like
oh, there
there's
was
no.
somebody that was speaking in one of the Facebook groups that I was in, and they're like petrified of dying. Like, is there a heaven? Is there a hell? I'm just so scared. What if I get a disease? What if I get this? What if I get that? And then
Mhm.
somebody else was trying to ease their pain. And at the end of the day, I guess my answer was, from where we're sitting right now, we don't technically know if there's a heaven or a hell or any of that stuff. But which way would you rather live out your remaining days?
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, if there is nothing, did you want
Right.
to spend the rest of your time worrying about it?
Right.
Again,
'Cause you won't
it feels
know.
like another Pollyanna answer, but it's kind of logical. Or do
Right.
you just want to trust that whatever's going to be is going to be, and I'm going to have the best time I can have in this amount of time? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
I think at the end of the day, thinking from those terms, like if I only have X amount of time, if this is my only life, do I always want to just experience the best of everything that I possibly can? Sure. Like that's our free will and
Right.
our personal ability to determine what our destiny could be, the best it could be, that
Right.
kind of thing.
But I mean, I totally understand what you're saying because it's like, why worry? Because the inevitable is going to happen whether we're ready or
Eventually,
not. So it's like, why worry about it? Because then you're just going to worry about it and then die.
you just wasted
So
all that
like,
time that you could have been
right,
doing
that's what I
so many better
mean.
things.
Like, that's still going to happen
Right.
whenever it's your time. So whenever you go, you're going to go. So like, why worry about it? But I always say this is hell. I'm like, you don't have to worry about the devil and hell. We're
We are
witnessing
living
it.
it. This is
We're
the
in it.
densest place in the universe where we
So
are right
people
now.
are the devil walking around us right now. They are all around us. This is hell. So just know when you die, it is beautiful.
Yep.
It's way better than this because you don't have all your freaking bills and worries and stress and
Yep.
all of your ailments and anything like that. We just
Just watch a
don't.
million NDEs. Watch all the
Right.
NDEs you can, and you hear these people like cry when they come back. They're like, I
They
don't want
don't
to be
want to
here.
come back.
I don't want to get stuffed all this big energy in this tiny little body, and I feel restricted, and I just want to
Uh-huh.
go back. That's got to be one of the hardest things.
They don't
Can't
want to go
imagine.
back. And then I look about like, do you ever look at photos like way before you were born? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't live in that shit. Like
Yes.
they're the like no electricity. They're like have all these flus and famine and all this shit. And
We'll
I'm
go
like,
back
ugh,
further because I do, if you believe in past lives,
I do, but I'm
I
just
feel
like, I'm
well,
glad I
listen,
don't
if we
remember it.
wanted to, the Irish potato famine and all that other stuff, we had to know what it was like to live without and have a hungry tummy and whatever the case. But
Right.
I feel like full circle too sometimes because of the way the world is. And I think of stories about Atlantis and how they blew themselves up. And I feel like we're getting close to that precipice right now again with technology and all of
Mm-hmm.
these AI
That's
things that they want to
crazy.
put over this beautiful planet that we have. But anyway, long
Mhm.
story short, I feel like everything, like we could choose to go back to indigenous ways where people didn't work a job, they lived in a community, they had their part in whatever the case was. They were healthier, they were breathing in good air, they were planting and not to say that there weren't predators out there and they didn't have
Mhm.
scary times and they didn't have famine and they didn't have bad winters that killed half the tribe and all this other stuff. They had things, but to me, that was just such a more, I don't know, this whole modern life is not what it's cracked up to be. Like, because what does everybody want to do? Work really super hard to get what, a couple of years to go back to what, living, being in nature or going to see other
Mhm.
lands or whatever. Like, so
Mhm.
couldn't we have done this all along and helped each other? And who cares if there's all this extraneous stuff that we have around us, closets full of shit we don't look at, a
Right.
million
I
clothes that
know.
there's not enough days in the year to wear, like all
I
these other
know.
things.
I
It's,
know.
I know I just totally got way off course,
No,
but
you're fine, but I totally understand what you're saying, especially just like with past lives. Like I do believe in past lives, definitely, right? But then you'll start looking at pictures like, oh, because I was born in 79, so if I see some like 76 and 75 and 72, I'm like, I don't think I'd make it.
wait, and I
Because
was 10 then. So in 77, I was 10 years old. So
oh my gosh, yeah. I just was like, I don't know if I would want to live there. You know what I mean? I'm glad I
yep,
wasn't born or seeing certain things that were happening. I was like, I'm glad I didn't live. And I'm talking about like adults, not
yes,
10-year-olds, but like the adults, what they're doing, that if they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s at that time and
yep.
lived through depression, because I mean, I have no idea when my last past life was. I don't know any of that
Right.
stuff. So I don't know when the
Have you
last
ever
time.
done a regression?
Yeah, and it sucked ass. It was
Really?
awful. It was the dumbest shit I've ever done.
Oh no, so you got to find a couple of good, there's some good people out there, but I've
There
done
are.
multiples. And so I've seen multiple past lives. And when you go through and do a past life with a regressionist, like a one-on-one, somebody who really knows what they're doing,
Uh-huh.
you pick up on things that make sense to pieces of your personality in this life.
Yeah, see, I would love to find that. The lady that did mine, I just laid on a bed and then she told me my lives. And so I was just
Oh
laying
my
there.
God, no, no,
Oh,
no.
it was so
So,
bad, Denise. She was like, "You're a man on a hill. You have like 8 kids and you're
oh no,
like
no, no,
on
no,
a
no, no.
farm." And I'm sitting there like, "What the fuck is this?"
So I'm
Like,
going to get you some people, but there was when you do traditional past life regression, the person does put you on, you get into a meditative state, but they literally take you out of your house, up on your roof, you travel in something, you are participating and you are on the
oh yeah,
inside of
no, I'm doing
whatever
that.
this life is.
Hmm.
And then literally most of the times they'll have you land somewhere and then you are estimating, you look down, do you have shoes on? What are you wearing? Are you male? Are you female? Like you're the one
Right.
reliving all of this stuff.
That's
You're
so funny.
identifying the year. You're identifying, like what part you played, like what were pertinent things of that life. So you
Uh,
definitely don't discount it because you will be so surprised. Like one of the lifetimes I was a wife of some, I don't know, king or somebody in Ireland, right? But I
yeah,
was this feisty, curly, redheaded wife that knew intuitively what was going to happen with my husband. But
yeah,
back then, women were not like really
right,
revered.
right.
And he was no different. And he was just like, go here, you have all this nice, like whatever housewares, go to the kitchen, go do whatever. And I was furious because I was like, you don't understand. You are not hitting the populace. You are not like these people are going to charge this place and kill you. And they wouldn't have it and he wouldn't listen to it and whatever. And I said, and I have a lot of this feminist like energy in this lifetime where I will do masculine things just because that life pissed me off so much. Because he did end up dying and he didn't end up listening. But I was like, oh, so that's where some of that feistiness comes from about being listened to as a woman equally. Like, don't dismiss me, that kind of a feeling, because I'm
Yeah,
trying to tell you something that's important. Not
yeah,
everything I say is important, but sometimes it's important, you
right,
know?
right.
But there were like all these different, so there's many different components. So totally, I will try to get you some resources for that because and you could do it remotely,
Yeah.
it's
Oh
no
yeah.
different. So you could totally do that, but it's worth it to just understand different components of yourself.
Okay. No, I'll have to, I will definitely take your word for it because my experience was not good.
Or if anybody
That's really
watching
fun.
does it, they can always reach out to you or
Right?
people give you testimonials or
I
whatever.
know. Message me who you do.
That would be
Who does
fun,
your past life regressions?
right?
But thank you very much for being on. Thank you for talking
Thanks for
about.
entertaining me to share.
Well, yeah. Well, I love your point of view too, and I think some of the people listening will understand what you're saying too in the different layers and how it's not just, black and white because it
Right.
isn't, and there's so much
Mhm.
more that you and I will never know until we die,
Yep.
and then we won't have anybody to tell it to, so it won't matter
Exactly.
anyways.
And the cycle continues.
Yes, and it just keeps going and going. But thank you for being here for my part two. I appreciate you. And
Thank
thank you, everybody,
you.
for listening in. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. And let me know in the comments if you agree with Denise or me, or you might have your own opinion altogether. And that's fine too. You might not agree with either of us, and that's okay. So, no right or wrongs. So, I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.